Hi and welcome back. It is great to have you attend our online class for Biology B. We're going to look at unit activity organizations of organisms, which is also our lab. In this activity, you're going to look at how organizations of organisms are. So the objective in this activity, you will analyze fossils and draw conclusions about classifications of these organisms. Right here, you're going ahead and read this page talking about how fossils are imprints or remnants of past organisms. And we can use these fossil records to see possibly what these organisms look like, characteristics, possibly even their environment that they lived in. We can use these records to help kind of trace organisms to see if they did evolve. Now, we like to use this in evolution to prove how species evolved. Hopefully in the discussion of the last activity for discussion, you can understand that evolution as we know it today is different than what Darwinism knew it, because Darwin did not have DNA, and in this case he could only use fossil records. So we're going to be basing this activity off of looking at fossil records with limited information. So right here is the scoring. Basically, when I'm looking at your activity, I want to see that you're putting in effort, that you're examining the fossils, you're classifying the fossils the best to your ability, describing challenges scientists face while classifying, explaining how fossil records can be shown similarities or relationships between organisms, compare environment predictions in your final classification, identify autotropes and heterotropes in your fossils examples, and explain how hard bodies are more common than soft tissues or microorganisms in fossil records. All these will be covered in different questions. Now I'd like to point out that this is actually supposed to take 2 hours. We are actually not going to go through every part of this activity. The whole point of this video is to make it a short video so you can see how to do it on yourself. And the whole reason you join me for class is so that we can go over this and make sure that you understand it completely in more depth. This is an overview of how you can do this video. So it's going to take you a while, so sit back and relax when you do this on your own. Use this video to help guide you through it. Pause it at any time, work on your activity, and then you can play it as you need it. So right here, question 1. Closely examine the fossils, then complete the tables below with your observations. You should include these details. Predict the kingdom. Classify fossils based on whether they show characteristics of plant, animals, or fungus. So all you're going to do where you see prediction of kingdom for fossil A, B, and C is predict whether it's a plant, animal, or fungus. Physical characteristics. Note the shape and patterns of any physical features of the fossils. So you're just going to describe what you see in the column that says physical characteristics. It can be in the most simplest terms that you can think of. You're just trying to physically describe it. Predict what type of environment based on the features of the fossils. What type of environment did the organisms live in? Was it aquatic organisms, land organisms? Did they require a hot or cold climate? So you're going to use your deductive reasoning, your opinions, your observations to answer those questions. Similar living organisms. Try to identify present-day organisms that resemble fossils. Which characteristics do the two organisms share? What characteristics are different? So you're trying to, when you look at the fossil records, you're trying to think of how present-day animals that we know of, or plants that we know of, or fungus that we know of represent in these fossils. So you're going to click on the blue link to be shown the different fossils. So as you see, you get 4 different fossils. Fossils A. You can look at it and you can look at it and see it's kind of like a spiral shape. It looks like a shell. To me, it looks like possibly it could be like either a snail or possibly a crab shell, those hermit crabs, depending on what environment it lived in, but you know it looks like a shell and it's hard. In fossil B, you look and you see the ridgets imprints right there. What does it look like to you? Is it possibly a leaf? Is it looking like a leaf in this fossil that may have been imprinted on the rock? you look at fossil C, it's interesting. It looks kind of like some type of like ray. It makes me think of a sea life creature. You can see right here that there's outlined of skeleton, so it looks like it's possibly an animal. In fossil D, you look at it and you see definitely it's a shell. Could possibly be a clam, something you're going to find in an ocean. So we're going to go through an example starting with fossil A. Let's go back to the activity. So we're going to predict what type of kingdom it is. We're going to say it's probably in the animal kingdom. Describe the physical characteristics. Well, we're going to say it looks like a shell. It is spiral. It looks like it's going to have been hard, maybe even protective for the animal. Predict the environment. Well, if I had to think about it, I'm going to try to think about an animal that looks similar to it now. And I come up with the first thing that comes to mind is like a snail. So I'm going to think it's land. Probably would have been in a temperature similar to Earth. So not too hot, not too cold. Probably a warm climate or warm temp. It probably looks like it probably ate some type of plant, so there would be plants around it. And you're going to keep listing as many things as you want to list on it. It's going to also probably have some type of water it needs for water to drink. And the closest organism, as I said, it's a snail to me, what it represents. Looks like it could be a snail. So that's what you're going to do for fossils B, C, and D. You're just going to take your time, write as many physical characteristics, classify it to what kind of kingdom you think it is. The main thing is that you're putting in a good amount of effort. So after you do that, you're going to go to question 2, and you're going to be trying to identify what type of organisms the fossils represent. So you have fossil A, B, and C, and D, and then you're going to find the organisms most similar to. Now, it might be overwhelming at first when you're taking a look for question number 2. It says the following chart lists taxonomy classifications for several organisms. Some have been one classification while others have subclassifications, meaning there's 2 different classifications within it. For the 4 classifications, which 4 classifications best match the classifications of your fossil? Research the classifications if you do not know their characteristics. Now, I'm sure these words kind of look overwhelming, and it might be hard for you to say brachiopod or a mollusk, gastropod, arthropod. You may not even know how to pronounce these. So this is where the time is going to come in. You have tools at your disposal that you can use. So I'm going to show you an example. You can highlight this, hit Control C to copy it. You can use YouTube. You can use a Google search. We're going to do both. So let's say we put this into YouTube. It's going to come up with different types of videos that you can watch to help you do your research. So let's just go ahead and click on the first link and see.
Hello and welcome to.
And see what it says. It can possibly tell us how to say the name if you don't know how to say it, and also kind of give us a background about this type of classification. So let's go ahead and watch.
Invertebrate Paleontology and Paleobotany at Utah State University. This is lecture 18, where we'll attempt to answer the question, what are brachiopods? And why are they so well studied in paleontology? So brachiopods are benthic marine animals enclosed in 2 shells. And they feed by drawing water into the shell.
I'm going to pause the video right here. For the brachiopods, you can tell when you're looking at the picture, which one does it look like to you? So if you need to, stop the video, go back to your fossils, and it looks like fossil D. So what I would do after just seeing this video, taking a look at it, I could listen to more of the information to understand what brachiopods are, what their history is, what type of environment they lived on, and if I would need to, I can always go back and edit some of my physical characteristics and add to it if I was struggling in question 1. But now I can go to part number 2 and say for organism D, organism 1 is the one it's most similar to. So you can just type in organism 1. And then you can give the reasoning. And you can explain that brachiopods were shell-like creatures that lived in the sea and look very similar, if not the same, identical to the picture. They look like fossil D. They are clam-like creatures, clam-like animals. And you could listen to what the person's saying and add more details to it. For this video, I want to keep it as short as possible. So if you have a hard time finding it on YouTube, you could also do the same kind of search on Google and see what pops up. Now right away you see gastropods and you see a snail-like shell, and so you can read about it right here. Gastropods are more commonly known as snails, slugs, become a large taxidermy, introverts, pilothon, and it keeps going on. Now you might be tempted just to do this, to copy and to paste your answer on this, but it wouldn't be helpful because I'm going to know it's copy and paste, so you're going to want to put in your own words. So take a look right here and you can see fossil A is probably like organism 2. So fossil A, you're going to type in organism 2. If I could type right now. Now, do not just copy and paste, okay? I don't want to just see that. I want you to use your brain to summarize it. So what you can do is you can copy and paste this word if you want to, and you don't want to type it. Doesn't bother me. So mollusk and gastropods, a subcategory, are snail. Oops, I can't. Didn't type that in. Are snail-like animals that look like fossil A. And you can listen to it, read more about it, and put a little bit of description on it. They're comprised of slugs from saltwater to freshwater and from land. So you can put on here to add a little bit more to your description. They can live on land, fresh water, and even seawater. Now, of course, depending on different things, ones that live in freshwater probably don't live in saltwater also. They have different characteristics. But for this point, you're just kind of giving your reasoning. And then if you need to, you can also, again, go back up and add more to the descriptions what they lived in if you need to, because you're having a hard time on question 1. So now you know how to basically go through these different classifications. You can learn how to pronounce them through the video. If you're having difficulty with them, you do a little bit of research. That's where you're going to spend your time, and then listing the fossils that look like the organisms. Right here is where you're going to start really using your brain to investigate and to see the difficulties that you had with basically part question 1 and question 2. You're going to explain right here. Based on your investigation, what challenges do scientists face when classifying new fossils? Well, first challenge they're going to face is they're going to have to try to identify some type of class that they already know. So they're going to have to make sure that they look at the different classes, know the different classes, so that they can even investigate what it might be related to. So there's a lot of background knowledge where they may even take a picture nowadays and use an app that can then scan for pictures that look like it, and in real life then be able to investigate from that picture where the fossils would be classified with. So based on your investigation, just give a good little summary about challenges you face. Like, it's hard to know what the fossil is unless I know the class, and then I need to figure out what classification that's already been researched in science, and then use my skills to identify the new fossil. So you can see it can take time, and you have to match it up to the right class. That's where challenges can be applied. How can scientists use fossil records to find evidence relationship between different species? Well, the most obvious reason is that the fossils will look like a similar animal that could be even present in today, or may have been researched about, that you can find off of through books, through the internet, through YouTube. So we can use the physical appearance of the fossil and see what they're related to kind of give up an idea or a prediction on what type of environment they lived on. Now, it might not be 100% accurate, but we can use it to help create the evidence relationships between previous species and current species. So in about 4 sentences to 5 sentences, a short paragraph, explain what I was just talking about and use your own words. In question 3, in part A, you predicted environments of these organisms lived in based on their physical descriptions. Did your classification in part A support the original prediction? Why is understanding the environment of fossilized organisms important to science research? So there's 2 different questions right here being asked. So what you're being asked is, when you did your predictions about the different fossils, were they accurate? And you're going to know if they were accurate. You can give a short 2 to 3 sentences about if they were accurate or not from your predictions. You can say some of them were, some of them were. Fossil A, I thought, was a sea life creature, which it could have been after doing question number 2. And you can explain each of the fossils if you want to, or you can give an overall 2 to 3 sentences explaining if your predictions did match, if they didn't match, and any kind of details I will be looking at to add to your grade. So why is understanding the environment of fossilized organisms important to scientific research? You answer that question. Why would it be important to know what an animal in the past used to live on, what their environment used to be? Could we use that to maybe tell how the environment changed, how maybe the animal changed and adapted to its environment over time, maybe that there's different species in different areas? Anything you can talk about on how the environment helps us understand maybe what it was and what it has changed into is going to be what you're going to want to put in that answer. Which of your fossils are most likely heterotrophs or autotrophs? And how do you know? So heterotrophs, just as a recap, and if you needed to know it and you didn't know what this word was, I would say, and if I wasn't your teacher, I would say go to YouTube, go to Google, Heterotrophs. So you can see right here what a heterotroph is and watch a short video. Now, of course, there's an ad that we get to sit through.
Welcome to Moo Moo Math and Science. Instead, rely on others.
So heterotrophs, they are organisms that rely on other organisms. So they eat autotrophs. They eat plants, they eat other animals, they eat other organisms. So you're going to have to use your reasoning to say which fossils are most likely to be heterotrophs and which ones are most likely to be autotrophs. Now, if they're an animal, most likely they're a heterotroph. If it's a plant, it's an autotroph. It makes its own food. So if you look at here, you see fossil A, it's an animal. So it would be and I'm going to leave that blank for you to fill in. Fossil B, it looks like it's a fern, a plant. So if it's a plant, it's going to be a blank. You can use your reasoning from what I just said to figure out what C and D are. Also, you can go back at any time and look up what C or D are from the classifications that you did in question number 2. Now, question number 5 is interesting. There's several different questions. Microorganisms also existed in fossil records, but they are rarer than other types of fossils. So the question that you're going to ask is, if they exist, why are they rarer? So if they say microorganisms, it should give you a clue. Micro meaning super small, organisms. So they would be not seen by the human eye. So what tool would you need to see microorganisms? So in your first part of your answer, you're going to say microorganisms are there, but they're extremely hard to see because you can't see them with the eye. So you would need a blank to see microorganisms. That's why it's harder to see than other type of fossils such as hard bodies or soft body fossils. Question number 2. This most common fossil form hard body parts such as bones, teeth, and shells. Why do you think these fossils are more common than soft tissue or microorganisms? So we got to answer these questions, which I kind of already told you how to answer microorganisms. So hard body organisms, we can basically see. We can see bones, we can see teeth. What's the reason for it? That it's easier to see those than to say a soft tissue fossil like skin, like the whole, actually like the eyeball, to even see that. You don't see those in fossils records hardly ever. Why do you think that hard body parts are easier to find for fossil records than soft tissue such as skin or organs inside the body? Is one more difficult to destroy? Does one basically decay slower than the other? So you don't want to talk about decomposition and how one type is going to decay faster or decompose faster than the other type. And so that's why you don't see many soft tissues, is because of this factor, whereas in hard bodies, because of this factor, they survive and they're preserved in rock. So look it up, do some research, and answer your questions. Now, I appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions. Remember, after every time you type in your answer, if it asks you to submit, make sure you hit submit. If you've been working on it as long as I have, you do run in the danger of it bouncing you off, so you may want to save and exit periodically. But once you are done, you're going to click back through, go to the end of it, go ahead and click submit for scoring, and then go ahead after you hit submit for scoring, when you get to page 6, then hit save and exit and move on, and I will score your video. If you have any questions, please email me, call me if you need any help. Have a wonderful day.